Hello everyone, today I'm going to show you the easy way to trim the shed and get it ready for paint.
And before I start trimming the shed, I need to add siding above the walls on the front and the back. And to have a place to nail the siding to, I add 2x4s on top of the wall. Whenever joining this LP Smart siding vertically, you want to add flashing to ensure there's no water intrusion behind the siding. And cutting the flashing is pretty easy. All you have to do is transfer the distance that you need over to the flashing and cut it with a thin snip. To secure the flashing in place, I add roofing nails to the inside of the flashing every 16 inches. And when installing this, just make sure you have installed the correct way, which is having the longer tab inside the sheeting panels. It's time to measure and cut the siding. And don't worry if you don't have this perfect, because we are adding 2-inch trims along the top of the soffit to hide any imperfection. One mistake I made here is not centering the groove of the siding to the center of the roof pitch. It is ½ inch off, you can barely notice, but it's there. And on the inside, this is what it would look like. So do the same thing for the back of the shed, and then we can move on to installing the soffit. LP makes a panel board that's a little thinner than siding, and it's a perfect panel board to be used for soffits. You can cut these boards with a table saw if you have one handy. If you don't, you can create a straight edge using one of the trims and couple clamps. Then you cut it with a circular saw. This is a great way to get a straight cut, and you don't have to carry a table saw all the way to the back of the yard. Then I install the panel into the soffit, and when I do this, I make sure to hug the fascia board all the way around, because on the inside we can cover it up with the 2-inch trim we're going to be installing later on. And this is how the flashing looks after we install the LP Smart sheeting. And this is the soffit. As I said, you notice a gap between the soffit and the wall, but don't worry, that's going to get covered up with trim later on. The first few soffit panels are going to be a little more difficult, but very quickly you're going to get the hang of it, and then just go around the whole shed installing the panels in place.
Now we're going to trim out these corners and the doorway. And for trim, we're going to use the same material as the siding, LP trim. Now they come in various different sizes. This one is a 4-inch wide. We're going to use a 4-inch wide on the front, on the top of the doors, and then we're going to use around the corners of the soffits. And to help you out, I've created a shopping cart right on the description, and if you go there, you're going to see the list of all the materials we use today ready to check out. And if you prefer, you can even have it delivered so you don't have to hassle around shopping in a store. And also, on the description, you got plans for this building that you can download and help you along the way when it's your time to build the shed.
And to make easier on myself, I add blocking to the end of the shed, so when I install the trim, it's flushed with the wall. It also makes it easier to mark the end of the trim so you can cut it later. I nailed the trim to the shed with 2 nails going from the bottom up every 16 inches. And when purchasing the nails for the trim, make sure it's outdoor rated. If you don't have a finish nailer, you can nail the trims by hand. Just make sure to use 2-inch trim nails. Between the soffit and the wall, I install 2-inch wide trims. To help hold the trim in place, I use clamps so I can mark it and cut them. And for the smaller trim, I add nails every 10 inches or so, just to make sure they don't move. And one trick you can use to find the angle of your cut is that you place your trim against the wall, and with a scrap board, you lay that against the trim and against the soffit. Then you can use your pencil to mark the angle you need to cut. You then nail the trim in place. Some people will recommend and suggest to use construction adhesive on the trim boards. It does make a better installation, It is up to you if you want to add the extra step of adding adhesive behind the boards. And this is what the corner will look like. You just gotta do the same for all four corners. Then I go around the shed working on one board at a time, from the corners to the soffits, making sure it's nice and snug and it's well secured. Now when I come across the two trim boards not lining up perfectly, I use a clamp to get them tight together. Then I nail them in place. It's time to work on the door. I am a really big fan of using blocks everywhere. You're gonna see me using the blocks to make sure that the trim it's level against the door opening and also it's centered with the door. And I keep the same nailing pattern on the trims around the door. Every 16 inches I add 2 nails. And on this build I have one window on the side that needs to be trimmed. You may have more than one window on your shed, but it's very similar either way. I start trimming from the top down and using the same nail pattern.
Alright, so we're very close to being done with the shed. Next is building the door. If you want to check that out, you can find it right here. If you want to check out the whole build, you can check it out right here. I hope you enjoyed this series, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.